No menus. Just these two words as the entire rule set make for a perfectly difficult challenge that might even be impossible. But let's just jump into Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and see how it goes. The intro already had some minor hurdles, but with ChatGPT to assure me selection screens aren't menus, and the reset button to cover up any stupid mistakes, I could make it far enough to choose a starter Pokemon. I decided to pick Turtwig since it easily deals with the first gym, which it will have to defeat all on its own. I can't use the PC since that is obviously a menu, so I started this challenge with 6 Pokemon in mind and I couldn't catch anything else. I soon also ran into the second big issue of this challenge. While clearing out the Orberg gym trainers, Turtwig wanted to learn Razor Leaf, but it already had 4 moves. To replace one of those moves, I would need to open a menu, so in this challenge I can only use the first 4 moves that a Pokemon learns. That means Turtwig has a moveset of Tackle, Withdraw, Leaf Age and Growth for the entire game. This is a lot more versatile than the other starters' movesets, but I only needed the last 2 moves to beat Rourke. One Leaf Age was enough to take care of Geodude, and after using Growth to boost Turtwig's attack stat, the Grass move could also easily deal with Onix. Rourke then went on the offense though, and his ace Cranidos landed a strong headbutt which also flinched Turtwig, letting them immediately follow up with a second attack for the KO, making me wide out. The only thing that really did was increase the reset counter, and on the second attempt my starter didn't get flinched, so a super effective Leaf Age with +1 attack and a 50% boost from Overgrow absolutely decimated the Cranidos, getting me the first badge. After clearing out some Team Galactic fights, I could move on to Floraroma Town, where my second team member was waiting for me. Since I have a save file of Pokemon Sword, I could talk to this gentleman to get a free Jirachi. The lady next to him can also give you a Mew if you have a Let's Go Pikachu or Eevee save file, but Jirachi has a much better moveset of Confusion, Wish, and soon also Swift and the Helping Hand. You might see one big issue though. Switching requires using a menu also for just changing the order of your party, so how do I even use Jirachi? Well, by letting my other Pokemon go down, I can make it so Jirachi is the first alive Pokemon in the party, so it will now get sent out at the start of battles. With that done, it was time to take on the Galactic Admin Mars. Being a mythical Pokemon, Jirachi easily one-shot Zubat with Confusion, or not? The one drawback of using a mythical Pokemon for the early game is that they need a lot of XP to level up, and it was quite noticeable here that I was under leveled. This was of course even worse against Perugly, leaving me with no other option than to grind. Unfortunately, since Jirachi levels up so slowly, it also ended up running out of attacking moves, so I had to heal my entire party, including Turtwig. This meant I had to feign it again, and now without using a double battle like I did last time. This left me with the painful option of letting a wild Pokemon slowly chip down my starter and then hope I was able to run away. If not, I get prompted to switch, meaning I need to reset and go through this annoying process all over again. But here I got the required luck, so let's take on Mars again, now with a level 14 Jirachi. I actually didn't immediately knock out Zubat and instead used Wish while they used U-turn and switched into Perugly, so I could then take the fake out which flinched Jirachi, which then immediately got healed back to full with Wish. Thief only did 16 damage, so by alternating Wish and Confusion I could keep Jirachi healthy and eventually finish off the Perugly, leaving just Zubat to get one shot by a single Confusion. Not much else happened on the road to the second gym, and the battle against Gardenia wasn't that eventful either. Jirachi was still a bit underleveled, but some minor luck and an amazing matchup compensated for that, resulting in an easy second badge. I also got the HM for Cut, but I could simply use it via the Pokecache, so no need for the menu here. Next up was another Galactic Admin fight though, this time against Jupiter and their monstrous Skuntank. Jirachi's best move to hit Dark types with is Swift, while Skuntank can hit back with either Flamethrower or even worse Snarl, which are both super effective, but the latter also drops my special attack, so Swift does even less damage. I again had to grind because of this, again having to heal afterwards, so I again had to let my starter go down, which is now a Groudle, and although that might seem good, it just makes this process a lot slower. I tried to fight again at level 23, alternating Wish and Swift similar to my strategy for Mars, but being a bit more aggressive because I was worried about the special attack drops from Snarl. Luckily on this attempt, Skuntank only used Flamethrower, so after barely hanging on at 3 HP, Jirachi wrapped up the fight with a 5th Swift. I was afraid I would now get a Togepi forced upon me by Cynthia, but luckily that only happens in Platinum, and I just got a free bicycle so I could now go to Cycling Road, except I first had to get the Explorer kit. This is the most questionable part of this challenge, since after I talk to the old guy to get it, he also forces me into the menu to enter the Grand Underground. However, as you can see, during this entire sequence I didn't press any buttons, so I'd like to argue that this is actually a cutscene. You're definitely allowed to disagree, just don't yell at me about it in the comment section. Or still do, it's probably good for the YouTube algorithm, just like liking this video. Anyways, quick tangent about why I'm doing this challenge in Brilliant Diamond of all games. The issue with gens 1 through 6 is pretty obvious, you need to teach HMs from the back menu to get through the game. The Alola games have ride Pokemon which kinda count for that as well, although that is debatable, and in Scarlet and Violet you are forced into the menu at multiple points like for the sandwich at the start, which isn't the cutscene. I'm actually not sure about Let's Go and Legends Arceus. Just pause writing the script to watch a Let's Go Eevee speedrun and there are no necessary menu usages, but since there are no wild battles you can't easily swap leads, so you are just forced to use your partner Pokemon, and Eevee can't hit Ghost with his first 4 moves, but Pikachu might be able to carry, and there's also the option to make every battle a 2v1 in multiplayer mode, so I think the Let's Go games would be possible too, but just more boring. I can't find any forced menu usages in Legends Arceus either, but there's a lot more to consider for this game. You're forced to catch 4 weak Pokemon at the start, which you can't evolve since it now also requires using the menu, leaving you with not many resource tasks to complete, and you can only catch 1 more Pokemon before you get to the Cobalt Coastlands, since you need to get a Dusclops to continue the story, so it's probably mathematically impossible. That leaves Gen 8 with Sword and Shield and the Sinnoh remakes. The former doesn't have any issues, not even questionable parts like in this playthrough, but I still went for Brilliant Diamond since this wasn't my ID. My friend Word of the Day Ajay came up with it for Sword and Shield, and then I figured out it would also be possible in Brilliant Diamond, so here we are. It's not stealing, it's just a compliment. Anyways, back to the challenge. Fortunately, I could leave the Grand Underground without using the menu, continuing the run with the Hard Home City rival battle. He stood no chance though, none of his Pokemon like taking psychic attacks, so let's quickly move on to more psychic weak Pokemon in the fighting gym. However, my Jirachi was still struggling to keep up with the opponent's levels, so confusion wasn't enough to one-shot even a gym trainer's Machoke. Because of this, I decided to take a detour to Pastoria City, where in the Great Marsh I could catch my third team member, Psyduck. With this as moral support in the back and a bit more experience for Jirachi, I tried taking on Maylene, but the Meditite was already an issue. Its part Psychic type makes it take neutral damage from Confusion, letting it survive and set up Light Screen, cutting my special damage in half for 8 turns because of its Light Clay. It could then constantly recover HP with Hyper Potions or Drain Punch, so I already took way too much damage for this battle to be winnable, and I was forced to reset. I returned almost an hour later at level 31, and although Meditite didn't do nearly as much damage, it still got a Light Screen, so Machoke could survive one Confusion and get off a Rock Tomb. This made Jirachi slower than Maylene's ace, Lucario, which first buffed his attack with Bulk Up, then dropped my defense with Screech, and holy shit. Yeah, that's another loss. At this point, you might be questioning the reset counter since I kinda forgot to explain that so far, something about keeping the flow of the video. Anyways, I count both resets and whiteouts for this. The next question is then, how do I save? That requires a menu, doesn't it? Luckily, this game has autosave, which activates every time a new map gets loaded. This does mean that I can't save directly in front of gym leaders, so whenever I lose, I have to do the entire gym puzzle again. Because of this, I usually prefer to grind instead of reset for better luck, so my next attempt against Maylene was at level 33, making a huge difference since I now one-shot Meditite. With the absence of Light Screen, Machoke also goes down to 1 Confusion, so Jirachi can now outspeed Lucario and hit a lot harder to finally get the easy victory I expected from the fighting type gym leader. Because of how much trouble the third gym caused, I thought the fourth one would take quite some time as well, but it actually went pretty smoothly. Crash or Wake has some decent hard hitters, but Jirachi's all-round 100 base stats lets it even out-heal super effective hits with Wish, so without any setup, there wasn't much to worry about against Gyarados and Quagsire. The one thing besides setup that Jirachi fears is its own powers: flinch hacks. This stupid Floatzel got the flinch with Bite twice, resulting in a reset, but second time's the charm, so that's badge number 4. The following rival battle is basically the same as the last one, so now it's time to knock out my own Jirachi and start using Psyduck. I wanted to start focusing on leveling this up in preparation for gyms 5 and 6, which Jirachi wouldn't perform as well against, but I didn't realize beforehand how awful it would be to grind this up. Golduck is pretty good, but getting to that point is the issue. In the end, it took 1 hour to evolve Psyduck into Golduck, and that wasn't even the worst part. After a short trip to Celestic Town where I didn't battle Cyrus, it was time to grind even more. With all trainers cleared out, I had to resort to fighting wild Pokemon, and then this happened. Yeah, no. So, about Pokemon, there we go. Duke a bit. Hello. Hi. How are you? So I think my last team member is decided. Remember how I had planned out a perfect team of 6 to beat this challenge? Yeah, Meditite was not one of them. But after some quick research, I realized that Medicham could beat the same bosses that I was planning to use a Luxray for, so welcome to the team. After more than 2 hours of grinding up Golduck, I finally felt confident enough to take on Fantina. Drifblim wasn't much of an issue, only doing a small bit of damage with Fly, and although Gengar outsped me, Confuse Ray isn't necessarily harmful, and the Signals and Headbutt took care of the poison type. However, Miss Mages is a Miss Major issue since it's also faster than Golduck, hits hard with Expert Belt boost and Magical Leaf, and can still benefit from the previously inflicted confusion. This all combined made a victory pretty unlikely, so it's time for more grinding. After 1.5 hours, Golduck was only 2 levels stronger, but since I mainly knocked out Ponyta and Meditite, which both give 1 speed EV, Golduck was now significantly faster, so I challenged Fantina again. This targeted grinding made it so I could now outspeed Gengar, whose experience also gave me another level, which was perfectly calculated to also make Golduck barely faster than Miss Mages. Confusion still screwed me over on this attempt, but 2 tries later, Water Pulse confused Miss Mages, which was in the perfect range to get finished off by a self-hit, finally getting me the 5th badge. The next stop was Canalave City with another rival battle, and even though his team finally starts getting scary here in Platinum, that's not the case in these games, so that was another easy victory, and the same can be said about Byron. Even though none of his Pokemon actually got one-shot, they couldn't do much back to Golduck while it just sat there spamming Water Pulse, so I eventually got the 6th badge. From this point, I mainly started using my newly evolved shiny Medicham in preparation for the Ice Gym. I also caught a Noctowl near Snowpoint City, so I could start getting some experience with that as well, although that may have been a mistake, but we'll get to that later. This left only 1 Pokemon to catch, but we'll also get to that later since using Fly requires a menu and I didn't want to do the painful trek to Snowpoint City twice. So with those 2 things saved for later, let's take on the Ice Gym. The gym trainers are already a bit annoying since they don't just have ice types, really shows how wacky Diamond and Pearl were, but I eventually made my way to the gym leader. Candace's lead Snover sets up Hail, so there's already some consistent chip damage throughout the fight, and although her first 2 Pokemon often don't deal any further damage, she took some inspiration from her non-ice type gym trainers and has a Medicham of her own. While I am forced to use Medicham's lesser special attack with Psybeam, Candace's is physically oriented with Bulk Up and Ice Punch, doing huge damage and freezing me. This resulted in my first loss of many against her, and for every attempt I had to do the stupid gym puzzle all over again. Half an hour of trial and error and a bit of grinding later, I first got a shiny Zigzagoon and Alpha Sapphire, just wanted to mention that, and then this run happened. By now I had developed the strategy of going for 1 Calm Mind against Sneasel, since it often just clicks Hone Claws twice, and if it doesn't, it attacks with Avalanche, which always moves last, so that's just a free special attack and special defense boost before using Force Palm to get the one shot. This, combined with the heal chip damage, made it so Psybeam could 2-shot the opposing Medicham, bringing out the final Pokemon, Abomasnow. One force bomb wasn't enough for the knockout, but the bombs simply went for Auroraville since I wasn't in range of Blizzard, while they were still low enough to get finished off by a second force bomb, getting me the 7th badge. So now let's talk about the worst part of this challenge. Well, kinda. For now. Ignoring all the Veilstone Galactic HQ shenanigans, the next stop is Spear Pillar. The multi-battle against Mars and Jupiter isn't really challenging, but the issue is that you get automatically healed afterwards and then immediately get thrown into the final battle against Cyrus. This means I am forced to use my starter for this, and right after the 7th gym, there was just a level 21 Groddle. Time for a grind that's even worse than Psyduck's. Actually, before I did that, I caught my last team member, Drifloon. This was available earlier, but team order matters, so that's why I got it now. This wasn't just so I got extra experience, but mainly for the EVs. I was grinding Groddle against Psyduck and Golduck, which are easy targets for my grass types, and simultaneously give my Noctowl and Drifloon in the back special attack EVs, which for those not as familiar with Pokemon just boils down to their special attack will be stronger than average. I didn't stream this entire grind and instead just took screenshots whenever a Pokemon gained a level, so here's a quick compilation. Once I'd maxed out the special attack EVs of my other team members, I moved on to grinding in Iron Island with the help of Riley, although I'm not 100% sure this was actually faster. Either way, at the start of the next stream I got my Groddle to level 60, finally let it evolve into Torterra, and then took on Cyrus. My starter's moveset might be garbage, but it's not utter garbage since I can still set up with Growth. Honchkrow was really nice and just used Defog 3 times in a row for no apparent reason, so I got up to +3 attack before getting hit with a guaranteed critical air cutter and decided it was time to go on the offense. Gyarados was next and immediately brought down my attack to +2 with Intimidate, so Leaf Edge wasn't a one shot and Torterra almost went down to an Ice Fang, so although I did knock out Gyarados, Crobat could easily finish the job. Even if I had beaten that as well, there would still be a Weavile in the back, so guess what? More grinding! While Past Me does that, let's talk about starter selection. I didn't really think ahead because I didn't realize that I have to use my starter here, and Piplup would have been just as fine for the first gym, so the question now is which starter would be best for Cyrus? He has 3 flying types and an ice type, so Torterra might sound awful, but I don't think Empoleon would have done much better. It would have only had Pound, Growl, Water Gun and Charm, so Gyarados would have been a big issue with Intimidate and Earthquake. Maybe a combination of Charm and Torrent boosted Water Gun could eventually get you the win, but it still would have been tricky. Even if I chosen Chimchar and somehow beaten Rourke, Infernape would have struggled even more against Cyrus's Gyarados. Because of that, I think going for setup with Torterra was still the best choice, but let's see if I can make that true with 54 resets on the counter and a good Lock Charm Shiny Electrike. It started off a bit worse than last time with Honchkrow already going for Air Cutter on the second turn, but because of a full restore I still managed to use 4 growths this time, letting me one-shot both Honchkrow with Tackle and Gyarados with Leaf Edge despite Intimidate. Third up was Crobat, which wasted turn 1 with Tailwind, and on turn 2 landed an Air Cutter which didn't crit, so I still had 76 HP left when Cyrus's final Pokemon came in. If Weavile had an Ice move, that definitely wouldn't have been enough, but the best it could do against me was Aerial Haze, so Torterra lived with 42 HP, retaliated with a devastating Leaf Edge, and that's Team Galactic down. I could now finally move on to the Electro Gym, and I got a level 68 Torterra, so how hard can it be? Well, it isn't an especially fast Pokemon, and quad weaknesses are a bit tricky, so Falkner's Ace outsped my Grass Ground type and finished it off with an Ice Fang. Still, by just getting 1 extra level and playing a bit more aggressively at the start of this fight, Torterra had enough HP to take 1 quad effective hit and Oko Deluxe right in return, getting me the 8th gym badge. This left just Victory Road, which was surprisingly easy for once, and the Pokemon League. Before I can challenge the Elite Four, there is one more rival fight though, and this is where Noctowl starts coming into play. And with that, I mean this is where I realized that Noctowl is fucking awful. Sorry for my language, but holy shit, this bird sucks. It's 25 levels higher than this Heracross and still is not faster? I know these last couple trainers would all have fully EV'd Pokemon, but I still expected better than this. In hindsight, I should have also focused on getting speed EVs instead of just special attack EVs, but because I can't use menus, I didn't realize how poor its speed was. I'm pretty sure it had a minus speed nature, but I never checked. Either way, this means I have to grind again, and this definitely doesn't bode well for the Elite Four. Grinding is also just really slow at this point. It took me 3 hours of beating up Pokemon in Victory Road to get 4 levels for Noctowl, and any future grinding will be even worse, so let's hope I don't need to do that. Yeah. With my bird at level 80, I decided to just give the fight a couple tries, and after 2 losses, I got this lucky run. It immediately started off well with a 10% deflection buff of dodging any move, in this case the Raptor's close combat, so this time I only got hit once by the opposing bird instead of twice, and Heracross went for Swords Dance instead of Rock Slide, so that was another easy knockout. The rivals team is pretty fast in general, so there are still a lot of threats left, with Floatzel and Infernape together bringing me down to 56 HP with 2 more Pokemon remaining. Fortunately, my good luck continued against Snorlax since it went for Yawn to try putting Noctowl to sleep, which failed because of its ability Insomnia, and although a second Air Slash still wasn't enough for the KO, neither was Snorlax's Hammer Arm, so I could get rid of it on the next turn, leaving just Roserade. Big surprise, it's faster than my big dumb bird, but this time the 20% deflection buff of living at 1 HP kicked in, getting me a probably undeserved win with the power of friendship. So now, the big question. How the hell am I beating the Elite Four? Well, I didn't catch Noctowl just for this rival battle, so obviously it will be playing a part here, but then I also still have a Drifloon in the back, well I can't switch, so why is that? We'll get there. First, let's talk about my strategy with Noctowl. Unlike its speed, its moveset is phenomenal, with Air Slash, Extra Sensory, Takedown and Uproar. Aeron's bug types stand no chance against this assortment of attacks, leaving only Heracross and Drapion as potential threats because they can outspeed and hit hard with super effective or critical hits. Bertha's team is a lot slower, so the only Pokemon to worry about here is Golem, since with Sturdy it can always live one attack and hit back hard with Stone Edge, and the rest of our Pokemon are safe one-shots. Well, they were after grinding up Noctowl to level 91. I'm certain some people have already commented by now that I should have used a daycare to level up my Pokemon, but I can't because putting a Pokemon in there requires using a menu. So instead, I had to beat up wild Pokemon for insert an egregious amount of hours, but that was luckily the last grinding of the run. Is what I would have said if Flint wasn't a major pain in the ass. Its Rapidash is the only Pokemon I somewhat like. It either goes for Iron Tail, which doesn't do much damage and has a big miss chance, or Hypnosis, which will fail due to Insomnia. The rest of his squad, I hate them all. Steelix is stupidly tanky, and if it hits with Iron Tail, I am basically dead. Lopunny can also live most hits, and if that retaliates with Mirror Coat, I am guaranteed dead. Then Drifblim actually can't do any direct damage, but Will-O-Wisp can be quite annoying for what I need to do, and Baton-Pass outright forces a reset, and lastly there's Infernape, which hits hard with Thunder Punch and can always live one hit because of the Focus Sash. It might seem hard to keep Noctowl alive through all of this, and it is, but luckily that's not my goal. No, my goal is even harder. I need Noctowl to not only single-handedly knock out all of Flint's Pokemon, but also itself. Because I'm not yet spending enough time talking about this Elite Four, let's take a quick detour to discuss why I chose Noctowl of all Pokemon. The issue is that in all my research, I didn't find a single Pokemon that could beat all Elite Four members and the champion. The two main reasons are that I need to use the 4 moves a Pokemon has when I catch it, and that I can't heal between fights. I never mentioned it before because it's so obvious, but I can't use the bag. The few Pokemon that did have perfect movesets right from the get-go either weren't strong enough to survive the onslaught of attacks from 26 Pokemon, or didn't have enough VP to deal with them in return. This meant I had to get creative in order to use 2 Pokemon instead of 1. The idea was simple. Beat the first couple Elite Four members with 1 Pokemon, win the last one of those battles by knocking out both Pokemon on the field, and voila! I can move on and in the next fight start with a fresh Pokemon. The execution is the hard part. My first concept was going out with a bang by using Explosion. Not many Pokemon learn it though, so my only real option would be Graveler, which would definitely get walled by Bertha's physically defensive ground types. Destiny Bond was a similar option, but there wasn't a single Pokemon that I could get with that move, so I had to get even more creative and look at recoil moves. Something like Hat Smash or Double Edge would be still somewhat consistent, but there were again no good options available. For example, Abomasnow came close, but at the maximum level I could catch it, it was still 3 levels short of learning Woodhammer. That left Takedown as my last resort for recoil moves, and as you can guess, Noctowl had the best matchup against the first couple Elite Four members out of all Pokemon that could learn it. So, here we are. I somehow had to knock out Flint's final Pokemon with a takedown that also finishes off Noctowl with the recoil damage. There were 2 main ways I could do that. Bring Infernape down to 1 HP with a Focus Sash, hope I got the 20% chance to live on 1 HP with Affection and finish the fight with takedown, or get to Infernape with a lot more HP and pray the recoil from 2 takedowns lines up perfectly with the damage from Thunder Punch. I tried this for a full 3-hour long stream at level 91 with no luck. The only thing I could do to improve my chances was more grinding, so off stream I spent insert second insane amount of time to make it so against Aeron, Noctowl would reach level 100, the pinnacle of power for a Pokemon. This paid off after 2 hours with the following run. By now I had optimized all my strategies, using Uproar to get guaranteed and fast one-shots on all of Aeron's Pokemon, but I of course still needed a lot of luck. This started with Heracross missing Rock Slide and then Drapion not landing a critical hit, so Noctowl was missing only an eighth of its HP when going up against Bertha. As I said earlier, Golem is the only problem here with Sturdy and Stone Edge, so the goal is to flinch it with Air Slash or dodge the attack. Extra Sensory would do more damage and can't miss, but Air Slash has a higher flinch chance, which is the main thing that matters here. This let me avoid any damage from Bertha on this attempt, since her remaining Pokemon are all one-shots, and even though Hippowdon sets up a Sandstorm, it's always last, so that doesn't matter. This brought me to Flint with only still 43 damage taken so far, and although Rapidash immediately added a bit to that number, Iron Tail didn't drop my defense, which is all I cared about. You can see I go for extra sensory here instead of the guaranteed kill with Air Slash, which is intentional so I can bait a full restore and sometimes even a switch into Steelix, but here we see the former, after which Air Slash gets the knockout. Steelix is basically Golem 2.0, getting taken care of by another Air Slash flinch, but because it was in heal range I then clicked Uproar. This took down the Steel type with his first 2 hits, so it was perfectly timed to have one more hit which could one-shot Lopunny to avoid Mirror Coat there. And although Drifton then tried to turn the luck against me with Minimize, Air Slash hit anyways, leaving just Infernape. Because I still had more than 200 HP, 2 hits from Flint's Ace wouldn't even finish Noctowl, but I could help them a bit by using Takedown, taking both of us to around a third of our HP, so after another Thunder Punch I could clear both sides with a second Takedown, but it missed. What a heartbreak. After all that good luck, a small bit of bad luck was all it took for this attempt to be ruined. I got back to Infernape later in that stream, but this time it wasn't even close, so on to stream number 10. I made it to Infernape a surprising amount of times during these 4 hours, but with no success either, and in this stream I started wondering what even the luck was that I needed for this. It's not a simple math problem, since there are many different paths these battles can take, so I booted up Visual Studio and started coding. If you want more explanation on the code that I wrote, just rewatch the VOD since I won't go in depth here, there's a playlist with those linked in the description. At the end of the stream I had a full simulation of the Elite Four run, with a couple bugs, so after fixing those off stream I could finally get the actual numbers in the stream number 11. Based on a million simulations, my code said that I would succeed roughly 1 out of 40 times. Honestly, that's not too bad, but I of course didn't get the required luck in this stream either. At this point, I was getting a bit bored, but I'm not a quitter, so I just started seeking ways of entertaining mainly myself and I guess also chat in the last couple streams, like continuing my Pokemon Insurgence Deathless Hardcore Nuzlocke at the same time. The stream got even more chaotic when I also inverted the colors on my Switch, and this led to this incredibly cursed but lucky attempt. Heracross landed Rock Slide but it didn't flinch and Drapion didn't crit, so Noctowl had 214 HP when I challenged Bertha, whose Golem missed Stone Edge, so that was a damageless fight. A Hypnosis from Rapidash, a crit on Steelix, a dodge against Lopunny, and a hit through Drifton's Minimize brought me to Infernape with still the exact same HP. After one round of Thunder Punch and Takedown, it seemed I had just too little HP left to survive another attack, But the 20% affection buff kicked in, letting Noctowl survive at 1 HP, so a second takedown cleared the field, finally getting me past Flint. I closed Insurgents, reverted the colors back, and cued the pre-Cynthia music because it was finally time for Drifloon to take the stage and finish things up. Lucian's lead Mr. Mime can be quite annoying with light screen to half my special damage, but by using focus energy and having maximum affection, Drifloon was guaranteed to land a critical hit for every attack, which increases the damage by 50% and ignores things such as light screen. This let it destroy Lucian's Psychic types with Shadow Ball, except for the part normal type Giraffaric, which is immune to it. I carefully assembled every part of my team though, and Drifloon wouldn't be there if it didn't have Payback as a super effective Dark type move, which just barely doesn't get a one shot. Because I lost a coin flip for a high enough damage roll, Lucian could set up Trick Room. This meant that the slower Medicham could now move first and land a strong Ice Punch, bringing me down to almost half HP. His remaining Pokemon went down without a hitch, but that still left Cynthia. My best shot was going for the guaranteed crits again, since without the type advantage, I wouldn't be getting one shots otherwise. My luck from against the earlier Elite 4 members came back for a bit with a Dark Pulse dodge, so a critical Shadow Ball let me move on to my Lodic. Unfortunately, even with a critical hit, Shadow Ball wouldn't be enough here, and the Mirror Coat would then certainly spell my demise. I had one more trick up my sleeve though. After getting a bit of chip damage with a physical payback, I could... well, fuck. I had 10-20% chances of thawing out, yet I got the 10% overall chance of none of this happening, so my dreams got thrown in the gutter. You really believed I was done grinding? How naive. I also had to get Drifloon up to level 100, which took another stupid amount of time. Once that was done, I could go back to the regular scheduled programming of playing Pokemon Insurgents, discovering Home Alone for the GBA, and of course slowly dissolving into madness. I still got the occasional good run like this one where... wait, did I successfully beat Flint again? This happened after Drifloon used Baton Pass, so I got lucky when it didn't matter. On to stream number 14. Yeah, it was completely uneventful, so on to stream number 15, where something magical happened. My internet was shit. The VOD doesn't reflect it, but at the start the lag was just horrendous. I thought things were getting better, so I didn't end the stream immediately, but it was pretty demoralizing, so after an hour I said I called it quits after I beat the next boss in Pokemon Insurgents. I ended up doing this in the middle of a run, so that was going to be the last one of the stream. Yeah, I may have had another damage with Burgha fight, but a horrendous Aeron fight with a Rock Slide hit and Night Slash crit already brought Noctowl down to half HP, getting chipped down even further by a high jump kick from Lopunny. To make matters worse, Drifloon landed on the Will-O-Wisp, burning Noctowl and dooming this attempt. I couldn't go for the double takedown shred again since burn halves my attack stat, and Flint still had a full restore left, so bringing it down to the focus edge wouldn't work either. I gave it a shot anyways, and Noctowl shrugged off the burn afterwards, keeping it alive for just a bit longer. But then, instead of healing up, Flint decided to go for the KO with Mag Punch, which couldn't finish the job completely, leaving Takedown to do exactly that, getting me past Flint for the second time. From here, it was all up to Drifloon to wrap up this run. At level 100, its payback was exactly guaranteed to one-shot Giraffaric with a critical hit, and Lucian wasn't much of a problem without Trick Room. The only Pokemon to outspeed me was Alakazam, but it just used Future Sight, which would never land since I finished the fight within 2 turns without taking damage. So now it was time to take on Cynthia with a full health, affection buffed, EV trained level 100 Drifblim and an improved strategy against Spiritomb. Just attack. Shadow Ball already had a 37.5% chance to one-shot, so I didn't even need a crit or dodger for the Yoko. This meant that instead of meaninglessly wasting a turn against my Lolly with Payback, I could meaningfully waste it by using Focus Energy, while Cynthia also does no damage because she used Mirror Coat and then the Flame Orb activated. It is there to boost my Lolly's physical defense via Marvel skill, but the trick up my sleeve is the special attack Hex, which doubles in power because of the burn, so it can now get a clean knockout with a critical hit. There were still 4 Pokemon left, but surprisingly, Drifloon moved on to one-shot all of those with critical Shadow Balls, getting a damageless sweep against Cynthia and making us the new Sinnoh champions. Holy shit. I knew beforehand things would be tricky, but I severely underestimated this challenge. I still love it, having so many interesting aspects with such a simple concept, but I wouldn't have minded the Pokemon League taking less than 9 streams. Even then, parts like the early game with Jirachi and the back-to-back galactic fights on Spear Pitter proved bigger obstacles than I expected beforehand, but I made it. In the end, I had an in-game time of 117 hours and 2 minutes. This is like at most 20% live and at least 80% off-stream grinding, since a majority of the stream time was also spent resetting, of course mainly at the Pokemon League. Anyway, this script is already getting way too long, so let's wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed the video, I'll see you next time, and of course, stay alive.